Welcome, everybody, to the Down the Donut Hole podcast and a special edition today. All things Irish, St. Paddy's Day, and all that sort of thing. Green, we can go down the list. And we have our resident folklorist here. Fill us all in on the Irish lore.
Well, I won't fill you all in because it's fun if you discover it either by accident, by encountering some little mystical being, or do your own dive into the books instead of the donut hole. Anyway, top of the morning to you boys. How are you? Des is already with us.
Yeah, top of the morning.
Did someone mention scones? And so, or scoons, as they say over there.
Oh. I thought I heard a banshee, but it turned out it was just like the car going by.
Did we get a picture of the pretty little plate of scoons?
I don't know.
I forgot to take one. I'm hoping one
I'm
of you
sure one's up there.
Okay. Before we ate them all. One of the things, kind of in the morning
Sorry,
before
I did my drinking early.
when we first start the show, we have to kind of move some of the stuff because it just, after a while, it gets in the way, and I talk with my hands, and so it's not a good idea.
Tell us about St. Patrick.
I'm going to tell you about St. Patrick. St. Patrick wasn't Irish, guys. How about that
Thanks
for a
for listening,
bombshell?
everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Didn't I see somewhere that he actually wasn't Irish?
He isn't Irish.
Oh my gosh, that's a conspiracy theory.
His father was a Roman who was stationed somewhere, either in Scotland or in Wales. And his father had some rank, and they had several children. His mom, I understand, was French in origin, and she was a former slave that was apparently very beautiful, very fetching, lovely manners. And Patrick's father fell in love with this female slave in his household and married her, and they had, like I say, several children. So how about that for a bombshell on St. Patrick's Day?
Oh my, it really is a conspiracy. My goodness.
What-
St. Patrick was not Irish. Oh, maybe we'll get in trouble. I don't know.
Was Patrick his name?
Yes. It's a version of that. No, actually. He's known as St. Patrick, and I think that in a lot of, certainly in Catholic, when someone takes the cloth, they change their name. They become a new person. They leave everything behind,
That's true.
their family status. They even leave their old identity behind. I have a niece who is a cloistered nun, and she has changed her name from the little girl name that I knew her as into something different. And so it's quite lovely and signifies complete sacrifice of self. No, Patrick, who we know as St. Patrick, he was actually captured when he was about 16 years old by raiders, by Irish raiders. And if you know your history of Britain and what is now the British Isles, you'll know that there were Viking raids, there were Irish raids, there were lots of tribal conflicts. And he was carried away from this Roman encampment and taken to Ireland. And he was actually a shepherd for 6 years or so. And he was a herder, they say, pigs, sheep, and he was often very hungry, often cold, knew a life of deprivation. And so he had to turn inward. He had to find within himself the strength to endure that. And so he became very spiritual, very faithful. And after about 6 years, he escaped. I understand he stowed away on a ship, and that some people say was bound for France, and that it was in France that he began his ecclesiastical education.
And then he just sailed away to America and founded St. Patrick's Day.
No, I don't.
Did you say he discovered America?
Thanks, everyone.
Wait, stop.
Okay.
Wait, stop.
So where did he go? Where was he? Where did he go?
So he made his way back home, but from some of my reading, I believe that his parents were killed in that raid. And at least, I believe one of his siblings was killed in that raid. I don't know if any of the other siblings were also taken captive and pressed into slavery elsewhere, but anyway, that's the story of his origins. After he decided to dedicate himself to the spread of Christianity, he decided that he would go back among his captors and bring Christianity to them. So I think in the act of forgiveness, you have to sort of adopt the mindset of Jesus hanging on the cross. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do.
So he didn't go back there and just like beat a bunch of people up and stuff.
No, in fact, beating things away. The story of Patrick driving the snakes.
Ooh, yeah, is that true?
Well, it's not true in the literal sense because there has never been snakes in Ireland.
Thanks to St. Patrick.
No.
I'll shut up. I'll just drink my
Since the Ice Age, there hasn't been
Your
snakes.
Irish coffee?
Yeah.
Remember, Ireland is an island, and so no, he didn't do it literally. But the story goes that when he was on a hillside, fasting, praying, being in a spiritual mindset, that snakes came to attack him and to draw his mind off that which is of the Lord.
Wait a minute. So he brought the snakes to the island in the first place?
No, we're not going there either. Anyway, he supposedly then, now this is at the end of his 40 days, so he's in a very weakened condition, and so he's standing on this hilltop and he drives these 40 snakes. Now, who's to say it wasn't some sort of hallucination that he was having from lack of food and proper nutrition? Who knows whether he was even getting enough hydration? We don't know. But this
Irish whiskey doesn't hydrate very well.
the water of life.
I think I need less coffee in my Irish coffee. but were the snakes, so you think this,
It's a metaphor.
so could the snakes be people?
No, they're ideas.
Okay.
And so I think that this has been a great way to teach the message that these old tribal ideas, these old pagan ideals of nature worship and things like that, when Christianity was introduced to Ireland, then a lot of that gave way. Now, there's stories that Patrick fought with the Druids, and I think this must be an early impulse to do the Marvel thing, where you have some superhero beaten up on...
Like with them or against them?
Against them,
Gotcha.
against the old Druids and that sort of thing. And what the truth seems to be, as archaeology reveals more and more, is that a lot of the pagan leaders were more than happy to go with the tide. It's like us in this country. If you think about it, we can make all kinds of correlations. Things that our parents' generation thought were horrific now are just the normal thing. You know, couples living together without being married. I remember on my Mother's Day, that was not a thing that you wanted any member of your family to be doing. Children out of wedlock, blah, blah, blah. And nowadays it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? People make the arrangement that works for them. So those stories of Patrick driving the snakes off the hilltop are to be read as a metaphor. And it's perfect in so many ways, because that Celtic wisdom, and I'm saying this in a broader sense than just Irish, because if Patrick was born in Scotland, then his early formative years or Wales would incorporate those sensibilities into his being too. And some of the prayers that are associated with St. Patrick are absolutely lovely.
And full disclosure, you are Irish, right?
My mom was, and her mom. So my mom was all Irish. My father was of German and East European descent. We didn't know about the East European part. We thought all German on my dad's side. It's funny. It's funny you should mention that, Des, because at our house, my father and his brother married sisters. So we had a lot of common relatives, so family reunions were always a lot of fun. But at our house on St. Patrick's Day, my father, again, German sensibility, and my mom, very Irish. And so what she would do is she would cook sauerkraut because she said it's a form of cabbage, but she'd dye it green. And so then she put a little drop of green food coloring in a glass of ale for my dad with with our supper and that. And so we all loved that. It was a lot of fun. We'd make green cupcakes and things like that. So very, very personal. And he would laugh and pretend to be offended that his beautiful sauerkraut was colored green and all of this. He'd pretend to be afraid to eat it and that sort of thing. So it was always a lot of laughter and fun, and I appreciate that.
See, St. Patrick's Day is indicative of what holidays should be. They should be like a celebration, no matter whose holiday it is. Everybody celebrates.
Yes. We have to remember, St. Patrick's Day in the Catholic Church is a holy day of obligation, which means the Catholics should attend Mass, they should take the Eucharist, and it should be celebrated first as a religious holiday because it represents successful missionary work.
Oh, oops.
But even so, what it has become, I think, is a celebration of the contribution of immigrants, especially immigrants who were unwelcome, because the Irish, if you remember the history, were not welcome here in the U.S. when they first arrived. So when you see cities, I believe it's Chicago, dyes the river green, and I'm thinking, how magnificent is that? And after a long, cold winter, especially up north, especially in the Windy City and places where the weather just batters the people, how welcome is St. Patrick's Day for fun? And unlike Valentine's Day, which also is a saint's holiday, don't forget, that has taken on all the romantic connotations. Little kids enjoy getting the little Valentine mail, the little envelopes and all of that. But there's a lot of people who feel like they can't fully participate in Valentine's Day because, that's for lovers. And I recently read something that, as a mother, that I've kind of taken to heart. They said, please don't send your kids Valentine, other than just a greeting over the internet or whatever. Don't send any cards or anything like that because this holiday ain't for you. So I'm pulling back on that, taking it to heart. But so it's very, very welcome. And
Sorry, I got you off track on that, but I don't know why I said full disclosure, but I just thought people should know you are part Irish, so you kind of were informed about this.
Of course.
Your mom was. So what were you telling us? What was the story you were telling us?
Just real quick, is the river always thawed out on St. Patty's Day?
I don't know. I've never been there, but I know people look forward to it. And I know there has been some warning, but this past weekend, I understand there were horrific storms up north. And indeed, part of central New York at this point, or this morning when I first read the news, has no power. So that'll be fun. But maybe after a few...
It's a good day to get outside and parade around.
Yeah, it is. Maybe a little a beer jacket of some sort, and you'll be fine.
Our friends in Ireland are getting ready to go out, and probably about this time. But we're just having our breakfast, and we're having some Irish coffee minus the coffee.
You might as well start the day out right. And then if there were any of these little winter bugs that are trying to take up residence in your system, if they say what whiskey and good butter won't cure.
Let me just say, Chicago won't be the only thing with a green river.
Thank you for that, Tess. There's an old saying, I think it's,
shut up?
No, I don't need a holiday.
You can tell that crossed her mind. I have another question I thought about. I didn't think about it too deeply. Maybe I should have. Is Ireland possibly the only country on the planet that is so strongly associated with a color? Now, I know red is associated with some political entities around the world, but not to a country specifically. Can you think of any other countries that are that strongly associated with a color? And I don't mean your national flag either.
You know why? One of the reasons why green is such a popular color is because apparently The idea was that green would render you invisible to fairies. And fairies are not and never were regarded as benevolent little beings. They were
terrifying, weren't they?
Yes.
Ah.
That's why I think you're starting to see a more accurate representation with some of the fantasy movies.
It's like people with their lovely memories of the grim fairy tales and stuff. Oh, so happily ever. No, I don't think that's how they were.
No, they weren't.
They were horrifying.
And that in Tinkerbell, you get a little hint that she's kind of mischievous, but she's not terrifyingly menacing. But people used to believe that they were enchanted, if someone got sick, that they had been enchanted or cursed by a fairy, and people weren't out on the highways late at night. And any time that you spend over in Scotland or Ireland, the mists from the sea come in. And I can understand how the lore develops, because there's just this eeriness about the fog and how it moves. And I can picture yarns being spun. Also, because of those thick fogs, you would not want your little ones out on the road if they decide they're going to go do some fun thing like a kid would. You would prefer that they didn't, because it would be easy to lose your way, because you can't see landmarks, I guess it's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
So,
But no, I can't think of another country that is associated without, like, you could argue like Russia is red, but that's a political thing, I think, yeah.
right.
And Republican?
Well, we also, in this country, with the red, white, and blue, we're big on our colors, but there's other countries that have red, white, and blue.
Like France?
Yeah.
But
It's just not
again,
so-
those are flag related. And the green for Ireland isn't flag related. It's
Well, they
about
have green,
it's
white,
about
and orange, don't they?
right, but the green is about it's the Emerald Isle, so it's about
The color of things.
and a feeling. It's a feeling of it, like you were saying with the color green. I think it's I don't know. I need more to drink.
Well, the thing that we've touched on the idea of the fairies, but the fairies are more a collective. A lot of the stories, a lot of the lore talks about the trooping fairies, and they would be dancing and singing, and so sometimes a lonely traveler on a misty road would hear off in the distance what he believes to be a party, and if you hear a party, you're drawn to it. And so many of the stories, and certainly we hear echoes of it in our story of Rip Van Winkle, where he heard a party off in the distance, and then the next thing we know,
Same with the sirens in the sea and stuff. No, the sirens.
Oh yes, absolutely. And where the sailors would stop up their ears. And now I'm wondering if and certainly science is going down that track of studying the vibrational effect on the human, and they're finding shocking abilities to heal. In fact, some people, I'm only going to touch on Kelly just this little bit, but some people believe, and I know there's science to back it up, that a cat purring is them healing themselves.
Oh, Kelly the cat. Kelly your cat.
Yep, Kelly the cat. We did put up a little thing so everybody can see what we're talking about. And Des, by the way, I want to thank you for the playlist. We have a Love of the Irish playlist. So if you're anybody on this side of the pond who's having maybe an Irish supper tonight, you might want to tap your playlist. Tell us about it.
Well, it's a mix of all kinds of things. Like, I like all kinds of music. It's a celebration of Irish artists, really. And so you get some Thin Lizzy in there and some Gary Moore, but also there's some Irish boy bands and Irish girl bands, but also traditional Irish folk music. And so it's like a mix of stuff. And did you know the band U2 is Irish?
Oh, yeah, of course. They don't really do any Irish-sounding music, though.
But they're Irish, so did they make the playlist?
Of course, you got to. What?
I didn't know they were Irish. No, they're Irish. But you have the Chieftains, but it's it's a pretty good mix, and we've got some positive feedback, I understand, about it. So that's good. I'm happy that
Oh, I love
If you want to develop any kind of playlist of music, then go to a delivery driver for sure.
That's true.
So do you put on a headset, or are you not allowed to put on a headset when you're delivering?
You play it in the van.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes the time go by and makes it seem less.
Irish coffee. No.
No. I don't believe that. You're a very good driver.
Yeah.
Very good driver. And I know that when you're actually out there, that you're very conscientious when you're actually out there. But
He hasn't gotten stuck in the sand yet, so that's pretty good
That's
driving.
true. That's true. Not yet.
oh God,
I'm working on it though.
oh God. Well, the only thing worse than getting stuck in the sand is getting stuck in the snow. And I've spent enough time up north.
Getting stuck in life.
Profound.
Philosophical now.
What were you saying about Kelly though?
Oh, I was just saying the kittens are doing very, very well. Yesterday we had a big storm here, so we fixed it so that she had a little more protection because she doesn't want to come in the house. But the babies are doing well. She turns out to be a pretty good mom. She does like her me time. We see her wandering around, but it's fun. And if anybody's interested, there is the little video of her. We have what else? You did another playlist for us. The moon one?
Yeah, people are liking those, so it's fun. It's just
That's fun.
yeah. I feel like I've gotten you off topic of what you're talking about.
Don't worry. I'll come back around sooner or later.
What about St. Patrick? No? Did that have something to do with the potato famine or any of that stuff?
No, that was later.
That's something else.
That was later.
No, St. Patrick was not responsible for the
No,
potato
not
famine.
really.
I just want to say I'm glad you mentioned the potato famine because just the word potato clicks with me. Have you guys ever, well, Dave, I know you have because I cook it a lot. Colcannon. Des, have you ever had
That
it?
sounds familiar, but I don't.
It's a potato dish with kale, which is a member of the cabbage family in Ireland. That's the traditional one. But people also use, just regular heads of cabbage. And basically, you cook up like a pound of each. You get the potatoes, mash those, cook the kale, and usually they cook the kale or and onion greens like green scallion tops or leeks in a little bit of milk. And then eventually you blend that all together really well. And then melt butter and put that on there. I usually tuck mine, I put it in usually a cast iron fry pan, tuck it in the oven. So it's just really 4 ingredients. Mashed potatoes, cooked cabbage or kale, green onion tops, and melted butter and milk.
Green food coloring?
No, I don't bother with that. This is good enough.
Another good food is a shamrock shake.
Minty.
Yeah, it's minty, but that's.
Can
Do they still
send
do
them
that?
a bill.
Do they still do that?
I don't know. I haven't been to that place in a while.
Oh, good. Good. Take a break, and then when you go back, it'll be a
Everything in moderation.
treat. Everything in moderation.
Except for Irish coffee. It's a holiday.
It's a holiday, yes, and you're off today. So,
Oh yeah, I forgot.
leprechauns. Have you seen any yet?
I was going to ask you: are leprechauns? Are they a form of fairy?
Yes. Sort of. Leprechauns are loners. And any images that you see, like if you're reading an old book or an accurately researched children's book, a leprechaun would be shown in a little leather apron. They're cobblers. They make shoes, little tiny fairy shoes. And they have a lot of business because the trooping fairies, who you hear off dancing and singing, they wear holes in their shoes, which reminds me of
Breakfast?
No.
Breakfast cereals?
yes, breakfast. But an Irish proverb that one pair of shoes with good soles is better than 2 pairs of shoes with good uppers. Well, think about it. The uppers look nice. The upper is the top part of your shoe.
Oh, okay.
So if you read the little tag inside, sometimes it says leather uppers, but that doesn't mean that the sole is leather too in most instances.
So don't lose your soul.
Don't lose your soul. And when we're talking about St. Patrick winning souls, and it's fair to talk about leprechauns being cobblers. And so they repair the little fairy shoes. And the idea of leprechauns is that if you see them, and especially if you capture them, don't blink. If you blink, if you take your eyes off of them, they will escape and you will not be able to find where their hidden gold is.
So the the gold is that's part of the legend, like the old school
Yes.
legend.
Some researchers think that it came from the fact that the Viking raiders would sometimes bury treasure in order to come back for it when they were better equipped or the weather was better or, for whatever reason they would bury it with the intent to come back and get it. And the lore is that that's the origin of the leprechauns. Also, it should be known that during those periods of raids, monasteries, which often would have like gold chalices and things like that, they would bury their own treasure. So would rich people, so that if they were raided, the Vikings wouldn't get it.
So are you saying there are leprechauns on Oak Island?
That's another one.
Oh, wait, sorry.
Oh boy.
Now, is that Irish, the connection between the pot of gold and a rainbow? Is that Irish also, or is that something that...
That's
from
part of the
somewhere else?
leprechaun lore. That's part of the leprechaun lore. I have, you probably remember, when we were once in West Virginia, and there was a storm, rainstorm, thunderstorm, and after it cleared, there was this beautiful rainbow. And I kid you not, it appeared that rainbow terminated at the base of a tree. Mm-hmm. Remember that?
Yeah,
and
I do, actually, yeah.
The kids were out there kind of pawing around.
You've actually seen the end of a rainbow?
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that is
And
absolutely.
you told them, go ahead, get some shovels.
Go ahead. And I wasn't too worried because with the roots of the tree being the way they weren't going to be digging very far. But it was interesting. I've never seen that. And I wish it was there and then, like the bees the other day, then it was gone. And so we only had just a really short window. And by the time we ran in and got cameras and things like that, it was pretty much not anything that you could capture on the film. So just like leprechauns
I think there was a
themselves.
bit of it left, and I might have had it's sort of an indication of it left with one picture, but I don't know where to find it.
It's just probably on one of the crashed hard drives. But it's just like leprechauns themselves, isn't it? If you blink, if you look away, they are gone, and your opportunity.
I was out doing deliveries way out in the country, and I saw a really beautiful rainbow and stuff, and I couldn't take my eyes off it. Yeah.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, then I hit a tree.
No, you didn't.
Anyway, so the leprechauns used to make shoes for the fairies?
Yes. That was most of their business. And the thing is that they usually are doing their work along a stone fence, because Ireland, Scotland.
How big are they, leprechauns, did you think?
Some people say that the word leprechaun itself comes from the Roman word for pygmy.
That makes sense.
So small, but I because of the way they're depicted in most of the old books and that
You
sort
think
of
they're
thing.
the size of a Smurf, basically, right? They're like Smurfs.
Like a Smurf.
Yeah.
But
Nobody
not,
really knows what the size of a Smurf is, actually.
yeah, but you have to scale it according to the rest of the pictures and things like that. So they sit on a little stool at the base of a wall or the base of a hedge where they're kind of out of sight. And so if you're walking along and you hear tap, tap, tapping.
That's a Yeti.
No, no, that's big. Anyway, tap, tap, tap. Then sneak up very quietly. Move the branches of the hedge if you can. Don't be seen. And if you do, if they're working hard, if the leprechaun is working hard, you can greet them if you're coming up from behind them, so that if you sound like another leprechaun maybe, or a fairy, somebody they expect down that lane. And then if you're going to grab them then, and preferably from behind. But once they turn and face you, don't blink. And it's so hard. Practice. In fact, that would be something that you could do today. Practice today on St. Patrick's Day, going as long as you can, not blinking.
So it's a blinking standoff if you come. So what happens if you do sort of win and the leprechaun blinks first? What happens to him?
He's got to give you his gold. If you got him and you don't blink or turn away, because he'll trick you, because they're very, very tricky. There's many stories about people. Well, there's one interesting one about this young man who catches a leprechaun. The leprechaun is sitting there. He's got a great big crock of ale, and he's sipping his ale, and he's working on the little fairy shoes. He's wearing his cobbler apron. And incidentally, leprechauns, in a lot of the literature, Their pants are either scarlet or yellow. They are not green. And sometimes he'll wear a green coat or a scarlet coat even. And sometimes in the cold weather, a leprechaun is known to wear kind of a riding coat, I'll call it, something that'll keep them warm because they're not impervious to weather. But if you, like in one of the stories, the young man catches the leprechaun, leprechaun takes him out into a field of what we know as goldenrod. And so a fairly tall, gold-colored weed. And if you've ever been in a meadow, the goldenrod can just be everywhere. So the leprechaun leads this young man. I'm going to call him Tom, and I forget his name in the story. But he leads Tom out into this big field of goldenrod. And Tom is delighted. He hasn't blinked, and his eyes are starting to sting and hurt, but he hasn't blinked, and he's got the leprechaun, and the leprechaun's nice about it. And Tom's feeling okay, because they can be pretty fierce. And real stories of leprechauns, especially the ones before we child-proofed the fairy stories, they're scary. And so he takes them out there, and they get over by this tree in this field, this little, is there the tree? No, that's not in this one. Just the goldenrod in this field. And he said, okay, dig right here. Well, Tom doesn't have a spade or a shovel or anything with him. So he says, okay, he goes, I don't have a way to do that. He goes, I'm going to tie my red garter that holds up your socks. Like if you see bagpipers now, they wear a garter to hold up the tall wool socks. And also that garter was in times previous to hold a small knife, so a skiandu. So he takes the garter off, Tom does, and he ties it around this goldenrod so he'll know right where to dig. And he's still got that leprechaun in his hand, kind of in a headlock, we'll say. And he says to him, he goes, now, you swear, you promise that you will not take that garter off. And the leprechaun assures him he won't. He said, no, against my honor, I won't do it. I promise you I won't. And so Tom, he says, okay, I'm going to let you go, but you promise. I promise I will not take that garter off there. It'll be right where you put it. And he says, all right, I'm going to let you go. And you go your way, and I'll go mine, and the gold is mine, right? He goes, the gold is going to be right under that gold, the Boliauns, they call goldenrod there. It'll be right under there when you come back. So Tom runs home, he gets his shovel, hurries back as fast as he can. He can't wait. His fortune is going to be made this day. It's a wonderful thing. He's not going to have to worry about money anymore. He gets to the field of Boliauns, of goldenrod. And to his absolute dismay, there is a red garter tied to every single stalk of goldenrod. And there are so many that there will be no good way of deciding which one was his garter because they're all alike, a perfect replica of the one he took off his leg. So Tom digs all day long until well after sunset when the mists start rolling in, and he decides he's going to go home. And he's learned a lesson. And years pass, and everywhere Tom goes from that day forward, he carries a spade with him in case he meets that leprechaun again. And this time he will not be fooled, and he makes sure that he tells this tale to every little kid that comes his way to make sure that they know not to blink and to be ready, so that if you catch a leprechaun, the gold can be yours. So that's one little Irish tale. I think the spirit of the people is definitely in their stories, it's in their proverbs, it's in their prayers. And there are just so many rich, wonderful, evocative, picturesque stories that come out of Ireland that I think it's worth celebrating, and it's worth all of us joining in and being Irish for a day.
Question for you. is the legend of fairies in general, because other countries and areas do have them in their folklore. Is that Irish? No, I know the leprechaun clearly connected with Ireland, but what about fairies in general?
I think they have a lot. They do because there are many stories of the origin of the Irish people, of the Tua de Danann. And they are they're Celts, certainly, although I will say that the Irish and the Scots, while they are definitely kindred, Celtic kindred, they have different sensibilities about things. And it's only in unification that they have been able to really establish themselves and move forward and move away, make themselves stronger against invaders, against any force against
Remember
them.
that the Tua de Danann, which is a thing you hear a lot on Ancient Aliens.
Yes. Very mysterious people. And very fairy-like in that it is said that they live in hillocks or little mounds where the ground rises. And you could picture, if you've ever seen like a travelogue on TV of Ireland and the beautifully green landscape, and it rolls, and you could picture one of those or many of those fairy mounds. Even in Scotland, there are fairy mounds, known fairy mounds that people go and visit them. And some people say they hear tinkling bells and places like that and other phenomenon happening to them there. But the Tua de Danann, as supposedly the origin race of the Irish, their lore is amazing. Some people think they are connected to one of the lost tribes of Israel. Other people say that they are, just kind of a mysterious people. And the stories of them, the lore of Ireland, the epics of Ireland are filled with tales. And they are secretive, and they retain powers. Even some of the Arthurian legends, certainly the concept of Avalon, it harkens back to the idea of the Tua de Danann. So,
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. Daz, I have a question for you.
Sure.
I understand that you have actually kissed the stone.
The Blarney Stone. Yeah, I forgot about that. Me and my ex-wife, we went to
how do you
Ireland.
do it?
It's interesting. We took a trip to Ireland years ago, and beautiful. It was really beautiful. It was a good Dublin and Cork, and you go to Cork. Cork is where we took like a bus up to Blarney Castle, and what's fascinating is the grounds are incredible because they have these, I don't know what they are, but they're gigantic leaves that grow out of the ground that you can actually like lay on. They're gigantic and everything. The castle's beautiful. It's like the staircase is a tight walk up there and everything, but it's a castle. It's not like, hey, here's, it's not like a Disneyland or something, it's a real thing that was used. But I always thought it was like a giant boulder, right? But it's the side of the castle wall on the roof of the roof of the castle.
Is it just one stone?
It's a wall.
whole
That's what I
wall.
thought. It's not a separated wall or separated.
You can
stone.
kiss anywhere on the wall?
No, there's a specific spot on the wall that you kiss, and you have to lay on your back when you get up there basically on the floor of the top. Does that make sense? The top of the tower.
Okay.
And you lay on your back, and you have to hold this railing and bend your head backwards to kiss it.
Is it an overhanging stone? Does it overhang?
There is a gap from the floor or the roof, I guess, of the castle, and there's a gap there, and then there's a there's a gap, and then there's the wall. Sorry, I've had a lot of coffee this morning, but
It's the coffee doing that.
but you, that's what was strange to me is that I always thought it was like, oh, you kiss. I think maybe it's because a lot of not to go off on the Mandela effect, but I think a lot of those Mandela effect thing is where people thought that Nelson Mandela had died in prison in the 80s, but he was still alive, and people misremember things. And I think a lot of that comes from how we parody things or discuss things in pop culture. And so the Blarney Stone was always, I believe, in comic strips and cartoons and stuff, was a boulder that people would kiss.
Yeah, but it would be. I mean, if castles were made out of boulders, right?
But-
So if you say that there's one specific area in the wall, that would have to be a boulder.
Right. But I always thought it was just like something would be sitting somewhere, but no, it's the side of the wall. You have to lean backwards and kiss it that way.
So it would be probably one specific boulder.
In the wall, yeah. As part of the wall.
Are people lined up to do that?
Yeah, everybody, it's a big thing.
Watching somebody hang over from the
think
top
so.
of a tower, is that safe?
Well, but no. But there are people up there that are, that watch you. You don't go up there by your unescorted. There are supervisors up there. That sounds not very mystical. Supervisors. But it is.
Are they dressed up?
Yeah, they are.
So
Yep.
what do they look like? Are they
remember.
do they look like they are castle staff, or do they look like giant leprechauns?
No, they look like they're. From what I remember, they look like they're kind of traditional, like clothing and stuff. Not like modern clothing, in other words. But so it's interesting because it's like, what's the whole thing behind that? It's supposed to be giving you. I kissed it. It should help, but it's supposed to give you the ability to speak well. What is that?
To be eloquent.
So not to be spewing Blarney, in other
I
words.
need to kiss it again, I guess, because
Head on
I
down.
couldn't even say that. But I wasn't. There are a lot of people that I met up there, tourists that really needed that to kiss that wall.
I can't resist this question because of my medical background, but do people have swabs and they wipe it off in between kisses?
No, not that I know of.
Are you reliant? The sunlight would take care of any germs on there.
Not if it's not exposed to the sun.
But they're not licking it. They're not licking the
You don't know what people will do. I heard a story about one guy who went there and claimed that he was able to lay on his back and just bite a chunk out of it as a souvenir. I'm pretty sure that's not real.
Somebody told you that?
Yes.
That I could see that happening, actually.
What?
Yeah, that's possible. I would imagine.
Was it in poor repair and people are hanging over the...
Possible. It's possible. Yeah. Because you're kind of just hanging out there, with your kissing a wall.
How far is your head hanging out?
2 feet.
So it's really your head and shoulders.
Yeah, and you have to hold on the rail, or you might fall.
Oh my God, is it dizzying?
Yeah.
I might cross that off my bucket list. I think that took care of me.
Yeah. I need to douse it in alcohol personally before.
Me
I do
too.
it.
I'll be right back.
Hey. Anyway, we are almost out of time. I just want to thank you all for joining us today. I think that St. Patrick's Day is a day of joy. It's a day of togetherness. And certainly in this time, in this era, I think the more we can do to be together, to appreciate each other, to study each other's heritage, because there's gems to be mined from all of it, things that can help us today as we make decisions, as we move forward, as we change the way we think. In ways to separate each other's cultures, to be divisive, but at the same time, if it's done with a spirit of appreciation about the uniqueness and the beauty and the relevance of each culture, then it's nothing but uplifting and unifying.
That's a good point, because I think I was saying this, I don't remember, but it's to celebrate, and I think maybe you guys should do more episodes like that to celebrate different.
Just real quick, what's the story behind the luck of the Irish and the
that's
shamrock
another-
thing, or just real
That's
quick?
another day. All I'm going to say is, may misfortune follow you all the days of your life, and may it never catch up. And with that, we'll say goodbye for today. Have a great party.
See you next time.